Hey guys, we're in Southern California at Raleigh Electric's headquarters. We're checking out the Retroglide, and we have the step-thru and the step-over high step. This thing comes in several different colors. This is like gray with the brown accents, white with brown accents. I think there's blue, maybe black as well. Only comes in one frame size. It's like 41 centimeter. So it really comes down to like, you know, do you want the easy step over like this where you just put your foot right through, or maybe you're someone who's a little bit taller and you want a more masculine look, slightly stiffer frame. They weigh about the same, 54.9 pounds. It's a nice bike, like really good weight distribution because the battery and the motor are low. They're center, quick release on the front and rear wheels because it's a mid-drive. You just have standard 100 millimeter hub spacing up front with a 9.8 millimeter skewer. On the back, 135 millimeters. Mechanical disc brakes, 160 millimeter rotors with these 4-finger levers. There's no motor inhibitors, and this is a cadence sensing mid-drive, so it's not quite as dynamic as something like Bosch, Brose, Yamaha, Shimano. There's a lot of mid-drives to choose from, but this one's a little bit more affordable, and it still puts out quite a bit of torque. I think it's like 68 Newton meters. It's rated from 350 to 500 watts, and the battery is a 48 volt 8.7 amp hour. So it's not like the highest capacity battery. It's around 417 watt hours. But the 48 volts is a little bit more efficient, a little bit more punchy, and you can even adjust some of that sort of the zippy like acceleration feeling in the display. As simple as it looks, there's quite a few options in there. I noticed that there's a quill stem. These can kind of go up and down, and then steel handlebars. So a little bit of vibration dampening going on. They're mid-rise and swept back, got the padded stitched grips, the oversized padded saddle here, Raleigh branded. It's a Velo saddle and it's got these springs, so there's a little bit of comfort mixed in. 27.2 millimeter seat post right there. So if you wanted to, you could swap that out with a seat post suspension from Thudbuster or Body Float. They have the Connect. There's also some Zoom ones on Amazon that are really just cheap. It's like 30, 50 bucks or something like that. Otherwise, it's an all aluminum rigid frame, rigid fork up here too, okay? So there's not a lot of give except for these tires. These are Schwalbe Fat Frank tires. It says right there balloon, so it's a little bit fatter, 26 by 2.35. That's the width right there. Pretty nice, you know. Schwalbe makes good stuff, and these have K-Guard 3, so it's like a puncture protection. They're gonna roll smoothly, but they got a little bit of grip going on, and really it's just about that air volume. And a 26-inch tire versus 27.5 or 28, you know, it brings the whole bike down, so that lowers the standover height, gets you that real relaxed feel. You'll notice that the fork's angled out a little bit, and then the seat tube is also angled back, so the saddle's further back, the pedals are forward, and that makes it so you can lower the saddle and put your feet down to stabilize the bike, and then when you pedal, you get a more full leg extension. It's a pretty nice setup in that sense, just really relaxed, like kind of cruises along. You can ride with no hands, and the bike tracks pretty well. Down here we have a nice paint-matched aluminum alloy chain cover, and I'm glad it's aluminum because if it gets scratched, it's not going to start to rust. The fenders, they are steel, so as nice as they look with the cool like tribal patterns and stuff like that, they could rust over time. I haven't heard them rattling or anything, and they do look beautiful. They're custom, like really wide, so they're going to keep you dry, and I love the look, but again, steel, question mark. The rack is alloy. It's integrated, so it's built right into the frame. The tubing's a little bit thicker. It might not work with all the panniers. A lot of times you get the bags that just hang over and Velcro. They're gonna work fine, but if you have the clip-on ones, you might wanna double check that those work. And then look at that, see this wire right here? That's set up for lights. So this bike comes pre-wired for lights, 6 volt DC in the rear and in the front. You can see it right down here, and then there's this little wire harness, so you could bundle up the wires if you wanted to, but they seem to stay out of the way just as is. So you've got fenders, you've got a rear rack, and there's even bottle cage bosses on this model, this frame. I'm a little bit surprised. Like, I'm glad they have them, but I'm a little bit surprised because I don't see them on the high step. And I actually reviewed the iZip E3 Zuma, which is basically the same bike, but it doesn't come with the rack or the fenders, and that one's $1988, so almost $2,000, whereas this one's $2,374. You know, you're paying a little bit extra for the rack, for the fenders and everything, for the different color choices. They both have pretty good warranty, and they've got excellent dealer coverage, Raleigh especially, and they also now sell kind of online, and they'll ship it to you and use like Beeline to help assemble it. It's an interesting model that they're going for, but the point being, you know, looking at the E3 Zuma, the step-thru model didn't have bottle cage bosses, so I kind of wonder about that. This is an actual functioning battery, but this bike back here, this is like a demo model, and that battery casing is just empty. So even though it looks sort of right, there are little things about these bikes that could be off. I'm doing my best. I'm recording all the stats back at the website, including the geometry, the width, the height, everything. But, you know, I'd love to see bottle cage bosses right here on the seat tube, and maybe they'll have them when this actually hits the market. I can't really say. Steel chainring up here. This is a 38 tooth, and it does have like a bash guard built in too, so that's going to help guide the chain and maybe reduce drops. Kind of a simple derailleur, Shimano Altus. That's one step up from the entry-level tourney, 12 to 32 tooth, I believe, on the cassette there. So, you know, it's good for around town. You can get up to 20 miles per hour, but you do have to shift in order to get that motor helping you to go that fast. Like, I think there's a limited RPM support on this, probably around 100 pedal strokes per minute. Some of the fancier, like, high-performance drives can support up to 120 RPM, and that means you don't have to shift gears as frequently to go fast. You just pedal faster. This one, you do have to shift gears, and there's no shift detection, so there could be a little bit more mashing and wear on that chain and the sprockets back here, the derailleur, and it's just cheaper. And including the shifter, not my favorite. This is the SIS index shifter. It's simple. It's easy to read. You know exactly what gear you're in, but when you're holding the grips, instead of just going tink, tink, like right down here with triggers, you have to reach like way up, and to me, it just doesn't work very well. But the bigger levers are very separated, and if you have gloves on, they're really easy to find versus like tiny little triggers at the bottom. So, you know, it's part of the like simple build for these cruisers, right? It's kind of set it and forget it, minimalist display panel, although again, there's some great readouts on that thing. Down here with the crank arms, we've got a 170 millimeter length. That's pretty standard. These VP plastic pedals, and it says something about like glass fiber. So maybe it's like a fiberglass kind of a thing. They've got little nubs, not adjustable or anything, but they're pretty wide and they've performed well. So I like these. These are pretty good choice. Extra thick 13 gauge spokes front and rear. And look at these rims. They're black. They don't have machined sidewalls, which are like the silver walls for caliper or V-brakes, because it's a disc brake setup. And 13 gauge on the rear, 36 spokes. So a lot of times you'll see 32. So 36 is extra, and it just seems like this bike's really built well. Maybe handle a little extra weight. No one would tell me if there's like a maximum weight on this. A lot of electric bikes say like 250. Some say 300 pounds. I can't really say, but I'm guessing that this is a little bit sturdier just because of the extra spokes and the thicker gauge. Here's the rear disc brake rotor, 160 millimeters. You know, mechanical disc brakes with the cable, you can kind of adjust them yourself, but they're just not as easy to adjust the reach on, and this cable stretches over time just like the derailleur, so you might have to get it tuned up. And they just, you know, this cable goes a lot further, and there's more resistance over time as you use them, and it gets dust and gunk in there. So it's not as fancy as it could be, but it gets the job done. And disc brakes is an upgrade from caliper brakes, in my opinion, because those would scratch the rims, and they just don't. They give you a good mechanical advantage, but disc brakes they're a bit of an upgrade. I love the kickstand. It's positioned really clear out of the way from those pedals. It's adjustable length. It's attached right to the frame. Like, good stuff right there. And then the extra kind of almost like a gusset or something, this little battery interface. It's really clean. It's a nice looking bike with a clean cockpit. I love the designs. Everything's tied together really nicely, even on the battery pack and everything. I might go ahead and take actually, while we're over here, this is the charger. So TransX is who's making the motor and the display panel, and they have a 3 amp charger. So a lot of e-bikes have 2 amp, which is a little slower. Some have 4 amp, and this is one of the only ones I've seen that's 3 amp, and it has a metal connector at the end, so it's a little bit tougher if you drop it or it gets stepped on. Just the wall side plug can be detached. It's about 2 pounds, so it's not the lightest weight charger, but you've got that really sturdy rack back here. Again, I don't know how much it's rated for. There's no stamp. A lot of times it's about 55 pounds, 25 kilograms on that. So coming up to the bike that actually works, I'm going to take the battery off and just show you what that's all about. It's an ABUS key. Just come over here, insert it, twist, and it looks like it's spring-loaded. It tries to spring back, and then it tips out to the side, just like that. So this is about 6 pounds. There's a 48 volt, 8.7 amp hours, 417 watt hours, LG cells. There's a fuse. There's the charging port, so you can charge this off the bike if you want, or you can, wheel the bike into your garage or your shop or whatever. I recommend storing these batteries in a cool, dry location. Extreme heat and cold can just wear the lithium-ion cells down prematurely. Also check on it every once in a while. It's not great to let the battery get below 20%. It sort of stresses the cells a little bit. So you might want to top it off every month or two if you haven't ridden. I think that's about it. Powering this bike on is really a two-step process, and I'm gonna jump into that in a second. But before we do, I just want to talk about again how the motor works. I think it's taking some signals from wheel speed back here, but it's really just like a cadence sensor, and it is responsive, but there's a little bit more of like an on-off feel, and again, I'm gonna put the camera down here in a little bit, but it's one of the trade-offs here in terms of power delivery. So in order to get the bike going, you have to press the power button on the battery pack first. It kind of lights up, 5 little dots. And that's actually more precision than you get up here with the display panel. If you press the power button here, it does a little dance. And then it just gives you color readouts. So green, yellow, or red. That's just not very good. That's kind of like old school, really basic. It'd be nice if there were like 5 ticks or 10 ticks or a percentage or something to give you more feedback about the battery. Because this is a heavier bike, about 55 pounds. You don't want to run out of batteries on the way. So if that's not giving you enough precision, just come down here and check this again. That's a little bit more precise. But let's say you get on this bike, you're ready to go, the rack's all loaded up, and you forgot to turn it on. You're going to have to reach way down here and press the button. It's nicer when everything is up here at the display panel, but whatever. So this display panel actually has it's like a mini USB port here, so you can plug in your portable electronics, maybe mount a smartphone or some speakers or maybe some Christmas lights or something fun. I believe that puts out 5 volts, 500 milliamps, so you just plug right in. And this bike uses the CAN bus system, just like cars, so they could plug in at the shop and give you some idea of like, is it the display, the motor, the throttle, what's broken on this thing, why isn't it working? And there is a throttle option that they sell. I think it's like $50 at the dealers. There it is. Looks like this, and it plugs like right into the existing cabling, and you would mount it like right over here. So I think this is really kind of a cool option. See how just like that you can reach over and press that. At assist level 0, it's live, so this can be a really good way to help you start if you have sensitive knees like I do and you're starting at a stoplight, or maybe you're struggling to climb a hill and you just need a little extra juice, or you're catching up to a friend. It's really cool. So assist level 0, I would press the minus key until there's no dots, and then there's this green. That's like, it used to be walk mode, and you'd hold the minus key for a couple seconds, but they disabled that. And they used to have a button throttle, which was kind of lame in my opinion, because you had to reach over and hold the button down, and it was really tiring. It didn't offer variable speed. This throttle is a great option, and I would probably get that myself, but it does cost a little bit extra, and then it switches the bike from being class 1, which is allowed on more trails and stuff, to class 2, which is still allowed a lot of places, but just kind of keep in mind like that you're changing the classification of the bike with the throttle. So anyway, coming back here, we've got this 4 little levels of assist. Each step up gives you a bit more power and speed. And then it's kind of interesting. Right now, I'm not sure what units we're in, but if you hold the plus and minus keys for a couple seconds, it switches units. So 11, I think now we're in kilometers. So I can press the power button. It's going to give me a range estimate for the highest level of assist. 23. Okay, so I'm going to hold plus and minus again. It says 88. Now it says 14. So the lower number is miles, because it's like 1.6 kilometers equals 1 mile. So we're in miles now, which is really cool. And if I go down to the first level of assist and do the range thing, again, tap power, it says 45. So 45 miles. I've estimated that this bike on a fully charged battery could go like 20 to 50 miles, but it all depends on your weight, the terrain, the wind, are there hills, how hard are you pedaling? This is a cadence sensing assist, so you really don't have to push very hard to get the motor to kick on, especially if it's at the higher level of assist. And when it's in these, 4 different levels of assist, you can still use the throttle. It's just not hot from standstill. You have to pedal for a second and get that rear wheel moving a couple miles per hour before it unlocks the throttle. So this is a big improvement in my opinion. You know, I've reviewed the Zuma, which is the iZip version, a bunch of times, and it used to be a hub motor system. It's way less efficient. This is a little bit more complex, but they're using some of the simpler drive systems. They've got a good battery, a great throttle option. I think it's a pretty cool bike, in my opinion. It's comfortable and everything, you know, especially if you got that seat post suspension. Go ahead and stow the kickstand here and just take a little ride. So let's see, I'm in the highest level of assist. I'm just gonna go ahead and start pedaling. It's not quite as instantaneous as some of the fancier motors, but it's not bad for a cadence sensing motor. And I was in a higher gear, so it took a second for the motor to kick on. Now I'm gonna shift down. There we go, I'm in first gear. This would be ideal for climbing. There we go. And you can't tell, but I actually wasn't really pushing, I'm just turning the crank arms. And yeah, just barely moving them, and it's still activating that motor. So that's the kind of cadence sensing I was talking about. And if I push really hard, it seems like it's just the same amount of power. But again, it's smooth, relatively quiet. Yeah, not bad. Okay guys, I'm in the highest level of assist, and you're pointed down at that 38 tooth chain ring. Unfortunately, the chain's blocked a little bit by the cover, but hopefully you can still hear and see some of that action. I'm going to shift through the gears. I am going to ease off a little bit, because if you don't, it can really kind of like kunk, 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 and that's just hard on the drivetrain. Also, listen for the fenders. I'm going to try to go over some bumpier stuff and just get an idea for how quiet this is, how responsive, all that stuff. And I am in the highest level of assist. Was able to hit 20 miles per hour, and then the motor just kind of eased out. You can pedal beyond that, but you know, it's going to be a lot of work because the bike's a little bit heavier and you sort of run out of gears. I didn't hear the fenders a whole lot, but I did hear the chain bouncing and I think hitting the chain cover. There is a slap guard there on the right chainstay though, so hopefully the paint is going to stay nice. Okay guys, I got the white one, and then Brandon is out there. He's a bigger guy. You could see the saddle squishing down, and I wanted to point out that because these are so wide, when you're going through doors, you want to be extra careful, and you're on the dummy bike. Yeah, that's nothing about you, okay? There's nothing. I think this is a great fit. Like, we got the seat up high, and you're looking good in all black, got the helmet going. So basically, I just wanted to give you guys a perspective of what the bike looks like when someone's actually on it, because all my camera shots are like of me.
Self-shot.
Yeah, okay, so let's do it. Just head around the building?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna help you pretend that it's electric.
Yeah, this is the fully silent.
Fully silent mode, he says. Looking pretty good. Really upright, relaxed. It's easy to talk to each other. And that's the thing about these bikes. They pedal pretty easily, even if there's no like electric assist going on. Like, you're not having to work very hard, right?
It's a cruiser. It's comfortable, upright, easy to ride.
Yeah, very much so. And stable, right? Like these bigger tires.
Oh yeah.
Add a lot of comfort, and they keep the bike tracking really well. This is great. Have you actually tested this one with the electric assist turned on?
Oh yeah, of course.
Do you have a favorite bike in the Raleigh lineup right now?
God, that's tough.
So many.
It'd be nice to have one of everything, right?
Sure.
You know, a mountain bike, a city cruiser.
A really big garage.
I love the Zuma a lot.
Yeah.
The Zuma's probably for sure one of my favorites.
Well, and that's a good point, because this basically, it's like the Zuma, except it has the steel fenders and the rack and stuff.
Exactly, yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, the Zuma, the Retroglide are both good. My girlfriend and I like to ride those.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then, you know, for the speed bike, something like, you know, the Moda is a lot of fun as well.
Love the Moda.
Yeah.
I got some reviews of those other bikes out there, but thank you so much, Brandon. It's been a lot of fun, and
Of course.
it's nice to see that third-person shot. Okay, guys, we're inside. I want to show you one more thing about the display. It's a little bit quieter here. If you hold the plus and power button for a couple seconds, you're going to see this 5. And what that means is power delivery is just standard. But if you want, you can plus all the way up to 9 and get 15% more power, or all the way down to 0, and then it's like 15% less power. We're not talking about making the bike go faster or anything. It's just the way that power is delivered is going to be a little bit zippier. It's going to feel like, you know, yeah, kind of that zip feeling, and you're going to drain the battery a little bit quicker this way. It's kind of like if you were using the throttle. But if you're a heavier rider and you just feel like the bike isn't starting as quickly as you want, you could adjust that and dial it up a little bit. The other thing to do is as you come to a stop, always shift down the gears, because that's going to empower the motor to start you quicker and to be more efficient. So yeah, I think that's called power trim. And then you just hold the power button again for a couple seconds and it sets. Well, guys, that was a lot of fun. It's always cool to get to interact with people at these companies. It seems like most of the people I meet in the bicycling industry are happy and ready to have a good time out there. I hope this gives you some answers and some insights on the Raleigh Retroglide IE. I realize that now that they're kind of selling online, you might not have the opportunity to test ride one of these in the shop, and since there are limited sizes and stuff, again, I've done my best recording all those stats back at ElectricBikeReview.com. Of course, have fun out there, riding together, enjoying the weather and events at the park or whatever you're gonna do, and of course, be safe. See you next time.